Welcome to Soul Over It, the podcast where science meets spirituality. Get ready to explore the hidden truths of health optimization, wellness, spirituality, and empowerment. We are your hosts, Taylor and Abby Scarpello. Let's dive in.
On today's episode, we sit down with Gabby Male, entrepreneur and content creator who helps women ditch dieting and learn to feel empowered in their bodies. We discuss all things diet culture, weight loss, health trends, and how to navigate your way through a fad-based society.
Gabby's mission is to educate the world about health in more ways than just food and fitness. She believes health is all-encompassing and specializes in talking about the intersection mental health plays in the lives of women who have struggled to cultivate a healthy relationship with food and exercise.
Gabby owns an apparel company called Relic 96, where she creates one-of-a-kind items through embroidery, screen printing, sublimation, and sewing. Her mission with Relic 96 is to help keep more clothing out of landmines and create mental health-focused designs with positive messages. Let's welcome Gabby Male on today's episode.
Hi, Gabby. Welcome to Soul Over It. We are so excited to have you on today's episode, chat a little bit about diet culture. And we were just chatting, and you are about a month out from your wedding. That is so excited. How has prep going for you?
It's so good. First off, thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to talk today. I think it's going to be a really just good, insightful conversation for anyone that's listening. I feel like they'll be able to relate to a piece of it. So I'm excited for that. Wedding planning's great. I say through gritted teeth. It's one of those things, it's so fun and it's going to be such an incredible day, but it's just a lot, especially being a few weeks out there, and we're doing a destination wedding. So there's just so many pieces and parts that go into it. But overall, I'm feeling really good. And I'm just I'm now at the point where there's not much more I can do. So I'm just excited and starting to try and be present, I don't want to be overly stressed. I want to try and cherish these moments because I know I'll look back and I'll actually miss it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And just staying present in the now as you lead up to the big day, it's so important because you don't want to miss those little
moments.
Exactly. Especially as girls and women, we dream about this huge day since childhood, really. And I guess, would you say that leading up to the wedding, do you think that looking back as that younger version of yourself, this is exactly what you have always envisioned or imagined your wedding or big day to be?
That's such a good question. I feel like I always watched Say Yes to the Dress and I loved all of the TLC shows back in the day, but I never really envisioned, I maybe envisioned dresses and stuff, but I've never been one to have a big dream of a wedding because my parents actually got married in Vegas and they're the happiest couple in the world. I've literally never seen my parents fight. And so I just never had this big, grand idea of what a wedding should be because I had these amazing role models of you can have something so small and still have an incredible relationship. So I'm very blessed to have that as my foundation. However, I think once I kind of entered adulthood, met Ryan, who's my fiance, and we've been together for 8 years, we together started dreaming up of what we wanted a wedding to look like. And so I would say, yes, that version of me, when I started actually thinking about it, when I kind of knew he was the one, yes, this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted to wait a while so that we could pay for people and we could provide things for people because it is a lot to ask for people to come to a destination wedding. So we wanted to make sure financially we were in the right spot and just it's weddings are a lot. And so we wanted to make sure we could do it our way and in the least stressful way possible.
I love it. That's awesome. That's beautiful. And it allows the journey between the two of you to grow, but also just allow it to blossom in a way that I guess that younger version of yourself would never even dream of or think that would be possible to make it to that next beautiful chapter of your life. Yeah. So I guess looking back on your journey, what and where did it really lead? Because you are so passionate about just diet culture and stepping into that version of yourself so that you can fully heal. Where did that start for yourself?
Yeah, so for me, it started, my relationship with diet culture really started back my senior year of high school. Soccer ended. I played soccer growing up. That was like my life. And as soon as it ended after my senior year, I knew I didn't want to play in college. And I had enough knowledge about health and wellness that I knew soccer was providing me a lot of that. And I didn't want to lose working out and my fitness and stuff. And so I turned to good old handy Pinterest back in the day. This is in what, like 2013. So it was not the safest place on the internet for a young, impressionable teen to turn to. And so I honestly went into it with really good intentions. Like I just wanted to look at how to work out on my own because I always had coaches telling me what to do. And when I did that, I was finding all of these fad diets and these things that were telling me, oh, if you eat this many calories, like you can lose weight, or if you do this workout, it will do this. And I just my brain was not fully developed and I did not have enough knowledge of what was right and wrong when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so I just ate it up and I actually developed an eating disorder. And I had that all through senior year of high school. And it wasn't until I went to college and met other people who had very similar experiences to me and kind of talked to them that I even realized that I had one. Like I knew that something was wrong because I knew food and the gym completely ruled my life and ruled my brain space and my thoughts. And so I knew something was wrong. I didn't want to categorize it as an eating disorder. And it wasn't until I met girls in college and we had very vulnerable conversations about these things. And I realized like, oh, there's other girls out there like me who struggle with this. Actually, we're all struggling with this, maybe not an eating disorder, but disordered relationships with food and exercise. And so in college, my journey I started working at the gym because I loved working out. I still loved fitness. And that's when my whole journey started blossoming. I started on Instagram back in 2016 and started a fitness page and really dove headfirst into the fitness world. And that is it's like I started off with like a eating disorder. And then the second half of my journey, I just had really disordered eating. I kind of thought I was in a healed space, but I wasn't. That's when I was I still wasn't fully aware of what I was doing and how much thoughts about my body and thoughts about food was really like ruling my everyday life. And then after college, I met my best friend, Mick, who also struggled with an eating disorder and disordered eating. And she went into recovery, and watching her go through recovery was what really made me realize like, oh, I'm still struggling. Like I'm still not in the best place. And I think after college to now has been where like my healing journey has really kind of started. And I'm 28 now. So I've been out for like 6 years and in recovery for 6 years. And it's been a crazy journey though.
That's amazing. Yeah. Beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us and our audience. And I love that you mentioned how when you started to gather information from Pinterest that your brain wasn't developed yet. Mm-hmm. So I would say as women or even just individuals in general, our brains don't develop until our mid to late 20s. Mm-hmm. So if we are beginning to implement different practices within our day-to-day where we're fully not developed, we're going to start to develop certain patterns that may hinder us from becoming that best version of ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I want to give Pinterest a little bit of credit. I mean, the internet can just in general be a scary place, but they have done a lot of work in the most recent years to make it a much safer space and to implement AI and technology to capitalize on like trigger words and finding posts that are not the safest especially for women. It's obviously still out there. It's still a dangerous place, but I'm specifically Pinterest, very impressed with how they have kind of shifted and adapted to try their best to not let that same story happen to teens today.
I love it. And I completely agree with that, especially with because we all know that our phones listen to us and listen to our conversations. And I would say the recommendations of whether we're looking something up or if our phones are listening to us, whatever they are recommending, it has shifted. I know I've realized that with my personal information or like the news feed. So that's great that you also have noticed, and I love that. So I guess that brings us to our big question and what our podcast is really, really about. So Gabby, what is it that you are so over?
So right now, I am so over the new wave of diet culture. So I think back in 2019-ish, when, at least in my little corner of the internet, it felt like we were really making headwaves with the body positivity movement, body neutrality, body liberation, and people were really starting to realize, like, oh, diet culture really does affect my life, and I'm going to practice intuitive eating, and I'm going to practice joyful movement. And I felt like we started getting more representation in ads and in the media, and just in general, people started to realize, like, oh, I need to learn to love myself. And we were doing great. And I was like, we've cracked the code. And then in the past year and a half, with all of the new semaglutide drugs and Wegovy and Ozempic and all that, and it's just this new wave of thinness and diet culture that has completely taken over the internet. And I feel like it's truly erased a few years of good work that we did. So yeah, I'm having this like inner battle right now where it's really difficult, because I feel like a lot of the good headway that we made has been erased, but that's not to say it's all bad, and it's not to say that it can't be undone again.
And I could totally understand that, because looking back to, like you said, 2019, where we're making headway, and it's like, love your body, love the body that you are in. But now it's like, oh no, now you should maybe take this drug to help you lose the weight, rather than embracing the journey. Or if you are on the weight loss journey, embrace it rather than just having a quick fix, I guess we could say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel that, again, going back to staying in the present moment, it's pulling us out of that present moment, where it can even put us too far into the future, where it's making things, or making us realize that, hey, maybe these are unrealistic goals for my body, or it's just too unhealthy for us as well.
100%. Yeah. And it's really difficult, because it's a really gray area when it comes to just weight loss and all of this body talk that we as women deal with every single day in our head. Because I want to make a very clear distinction that if you are on a weight loss journey, or if you do take one of those drugs, even if you're not diabetic, you're not a bad person. Like, you're not inherently doing anything wrong. It's the media that you're being fed. It's the things that you were told growing up. It's how you watched your mother when you were younger. Like, me personally, I grew up with a mom, and I love her to death, but like, she hated herself. Like, I watched my mom actively hate herself. And then I grew up and I have a body very similar to hers. And so what am I supposed to think when I look in the mirror and I see cellulite like hers? And I grew up watching her hate herself, like that's not my fault. Like, I was taught that. And also, it's not her fault either. She probably watched her mother do that and watched magazines and all of those things. So it's a really gray area, because there's no one to blame, Yes, it's partly media, it's partly Hollywood, it's partly celebrities, it's partly the diet industry. There's so many people and factors. It really is. That's why it's called diet culture, because it's not just the diet media. There's so many different people and factors that go into it that create this problem, and it's really hard to fix.
No, it's so true. You have so many different inputs, whether it is from family members, from media, from magazines, from whatever, and then you have your own thoughts. And when you look at yourself in the mirror, it's like, what is it that is it being triggered from the outside, or is it coming from the inside now? And it's like this mental battle.
And we could also relate to that as well. And because we come from a very old school Italian family, where the women, I would say, they carried their weight a little bit on the heavier side, just from life. Honestly, life. Yeah. And I do remember growing up, our mom would always take raspberry ketones, different vitamins to help with weight loss. And when I was in college, I was in the bodybuilding industry. And I remember trainers and some coaches recommending fat burners. And I was like, oh, wow, my mom used to take these. This is so cool. Now I get to take them as well. However, looking back and gaining the knowledge that I have now, those were so unhealthy, or even just certain supplements to help spark up your metabolism so that you can release fat. So I can definitely relate to you on that.
Yeah. And it's all about intention too. Like, especially if you are someone, and again, too, I want to make a very clear distinction. We are three women sitting here who live in very straight sized, then socially acceptable bodies.
Yeah.
So I will never know what it feels like to live in a fat body and have that experience through the world, and then the mindset and the thoughts that then come with that. So I can only speak from my experience of disliking my own body while being accepted in society. Like, I never had to deal with that side of it. But from a personal standpoint and from disliking my own body, it's really, really hard, because you grow up seeing your parents or your mom and your aunts and people just disliking themselves. And then you have the media telling you all of this stuff, and especially now, like, you want to do it, maybe even you want to do it the right way. Let's say you come into this and you're like, I want to get healthy. I don't want to follow diet culture. I want to do it the right way. It's still so hard to completely do it the right way. There is no perfect right way to do it, because even I remember when I first started my like healing journey, I almost went the opposite direction. I kind of was like anti-fitness. Like, I was almost scared of the gym because I didn't want to fall back into unhealthy habits. And I was scared of, like, I would never order a salad because I'm like, oh, if you're ordering a salad, then like you're disordered. I didn't fully understand that, like, you can have dichotomy here. There can be, you can have both. Like, you can love health and fitness. You can love working out. You can love eating nutritious foods. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing, and it doesn't have to completely rule your life. So it's all about the intention. It's all about, like, why am I doing this? Why do I want to eat these nutritious foods? Why do I want to work out? Why do I want to lose weight? Is it to look and feel better for myself and to live a healthier life? Or is it because my mom is pressuring me to, or because I have a wedding coming up and I feel like I need to look a certain way to be beautiful in my pictures? You know, it's really hard, but I always go back to, like, what is your intention behind it? And if we can shift the intention, the results and your just experience with health and fitness will be so much more pleasurable.
It's so true. And everything you do is all about the intention. And like you said, it's like, what is it?
And that's what's really going to fuel you. And I would say always coming back and bring the energy back onto yourself. And are you doing the things that you're doing out of fear, or are you doing it purely out of love? And that's something that I always ask myself. Okay, maybe I want to work out today, but I didn't really sleep the best. Is it going to benefit me so that I will kill myself in the gym or put myself through a hard workout? But honestly, once you do think it over, no, that's not a form of self-love. You're going to be living out of that fear-based. And that's something that I always ask myself. And it's so important to just bring the energy back onto yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so true. When I think back to college, when I was also in the fitness industry, when I think of just like the energy I had around working out and like eating, there's so much fear that I feel there. Like, just in that era of my life, it was always like fear of gaining weight, fear of not looking good, fear of not improving or being stronger. And now when I think about it, I think, like, I just instantly start smiling because I think about rollerblading and jumping on my trampoline and dancing. And like, there's so much joy and delicious food with my friends. Like, there's so much more joy about it. And you actually reminded me, one of the really like helpful things that really helped me through like my recovery and just like learning to have a very balanced and like healthy relationship with food and exercise was asking myself, like, every day and multiple times throughout the day, I had to ask myself this. Whenever I would do something, I would always say, what is the kindest thing I can do for my body right now? So if I was thinking I wanted to work out or thinking I was wanting to eat something or whatever, I would just ask myself, what is the kindest thing I can do for my body right now? Not what's going to make me look a certain way, not what's going to make me feel a certain way. Like, what does my body need, and what is the kindest thing that I can do for it? And that so many times got me through situations where I maybe would have picked the opposite out of fear. And yeah, just a little tidbit for people. If you're like struggling, you're like, where do I start? Just start asking yourself, like when you wake up, like, what is the kindest thing I can do for my body today? Does it need to move? Does it need to rest? Does it need maybe some light movement? Does it need some joy and I need to dance? And yeah, that'll help at least get you a little bit started.
I love that. It's so true. And that's something that I do every single day. I was actually over a year ago, I sprained both of my knees, and throughout the healing journey, wasn't healing. And I'm like, what is going on? There has to be something deeper. And it came down to, hey, you really don't know true self-love. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes so much sense. Just what I was going through at the time. And from that point on, I chose to ask myself every single day, what can I do to bring the energy back to myself and choose myself and choose love? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do this for about 30 days, just do a 30-day self-love challenge. Here we are almost a year later, and I ask myself every single day, what can I do to choose myself and choose love? Some days it's just a walk outside, just get a little bit more grounded. Some days it's, oh no, do a nice self-care ritual. And every day it's a different practice that I choose that I can honor what's on my heart, honor what's on my mind and my soul. And it's so important to always ask yourself, like you were saying, what can I do to bring that energy back to myself and my body?
I love that so much. And it kind of reminds me of, it sounds like you were creating like a little tool. I always call it like my toolbox, and like a self-love toolbox. And I have toolboxes for many different areas of my life. Like I have my mental health one. I've got like there's so many different ones, but specifically for like movement and exercise and just like my health in general, my health toolbox, I was strictly just working out and macros. And now that toolbox, oh my God, it's overflowing. Like I've got so many different forms of exercise and forms of movement and things that just bring me joy and bring me happiness and help me feel better overall, because I was a public health major. So that is one thing that really helped me when I was going through it. And one of the things that we learned was health is an umbrella. Like it's not, under that umbrella, that's not just exercise and nutrition. Under that umbrella, you've got mental health, you've got emotional health, you've got spiritual health, you've got your occupational health. Like there are so many areas of health that make up a healthy person. And when we only like focus on one or two of those areas, we really neglect these other areas, and it can have a huge detriment to our overall health. We may look great, we may have abs, we may be able to run a mile in under 7 minutes, but are we happy? You know, like, do we have a good relationship with our family? Do we have a good relationship with our friends? Do we have a good relationship with ourselves? And so learning about that, and almost, I always like to call it like the ladder, I guess, is what in my brain, like I imagine just like this ladder with all of these different pillars of health. And sometimes the one that's on the bottom gets knocked to the top because something in life happens, and that's what I then need to focus myself on. And then the other things kind of have to fall down, and then something else in life happens, and then something else takes the top, and it's just constantly changing. And if you have such a tight grip on just the health or just the fitness and the exercise, and you don't allow it to kind of move and move with you, you're not going to be overall healthy, and you're going to notice these other areas having like big downfalls and big detriment.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's similar. I'm sure you've seen it on TikTok. It's that sound clip about wellness, where it's wellness girls are the ones that drink 16 ounces of lemon water, and they're just spitting different practices. And health and wellness is so much more than that. What you put in the box, because it's like you said, exercise and counting my calories or macros, and it's like, it's more than just that. And that kind of keeps you, I guess, in a so-called box, because it's like, what if you want to go out, or when you are, maybe you do need a little bit more care for your mental health, and it's like, you gotta go out your horizon. Yeah. Go outside box.
Or just 100%. Yeah.
And try something new.
Definitely. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned in the past couple of years, especially when it comes to exercise. Like I used to be so like, I had my routine. I went to the gym. I was a personal trainer. So like I made my own routine, my life changed when I went to a group fitness class and I tried something different. And I was like, and I was very resistant. I was very hesitant. I was like, no one knows better than I do. And then I left that class absolutely dead, like best workout of my life. And I was like, I don't know everything. What? And so then I started taking more group fitness classes. I fell in love with boxing. I fell in love with all these different forms of movement.
I love it.
And boxing helped my mental health so much. Like I that was like during COVID too. So it was like just the best form of exercise and expanding the horizons. And I've been able to say yes to so many more things because maybe in the past, a great example I love kayaking. And there have been times where one of my friends has reached out and said like, hey, you want to go kayaking today? And like as our form of movement. Old me would have been like, that's not a workout. Like that's not a good, or what if I don't get a good enough workout in? And I would have had so much fear around that. And now it's like, not only am I going to spend time out in nature, which is so good for you, I'm also going to spend quality time with my friend, not on my phone. I'm going to be in the sun and I'm going to be moving my body. Like that is all of like my health boxes checked. And it's just so sad that because of diet culture and because of this culture that we've created around health and fitness and this expectation that we have, that we think, oh, if it's not inside the four walls of this building with all these loud men grunting, then it doesn't count as a workout. It's silly.
I can relate to that 1,000%, especially coming from the bodybuilding industry where it's like cardio. You don't do cardio. And walking, that is not a form of exercise. All we have to do is bench, squat, and deadlift. And after graduating college and actually through my bodybuilding journey, I came down with autoimmune disease.
And I'm so not surprised that you're saying that. Dude, the amount of girls that I know, I'm so excited to hear this because the amount of girls I know that were in the bodybuilding industry that now have autoimmune diseases is absolutely unprecedented. There needs to be a study on it.
Absolutely. For sure. Absolutely. And I've been doing I would say consciously, I've been doing my own research in my back pocket, I would say, and working with our health coaching clients through that. But I do see I've connected the dots from between different foods and different practices of basically killing your body in the gym without proper nourishment. But then also, hey, I just got this brand new supplement that is like 0 calories. Let's try it. However, it's filled with chemicals that are going to strip your entire gut lining. And one thing just leads to another. But like you were saying, with movement, my practice has completely changed, where back in college, killing myself in the gym, where now it's waking up, it's, you know what, I'm just going to go for a walk today. And that is enough movement for myself and my body. I'm getting outside, I'm grounding myself, I'm in nature, like you were saying. And so I can relate to your journey as well and yourself.
Yeah, no, and it is so crazy. I mean, going back to the autoimmune stuff, like I don't think people realize how dangerous disordered relationships with food and exercise and your body can be to your long-term health. And I mean, there's so many studies that are being done about like the science behind that, but I'm a big believer in also just like the cortisol, like I think back to that time in my life, and I was so subconsciously stressed all the time. Am I going to hit my macros? Can I eat right now? Oh no, I can't eat right now. What am I going to do for the next 6 hours before I go to bed? Like just constantly worried, like, am I going to get a good workout in? Am I going to weigh more tomorrow? Like always just so worried. Like it has such a strong effect on your body long term. And then the actual like science side of it too, like the things that we were putting into our body, the things that not putting enough into our body. It is absolutely crazy. Like I swear I see so many of the girls that I used to follow in the fitness industry who have also taken a route like us, who have kind of healed, that I still follow. I think I'd say 8 out of 10 of them have health complications now. And a lot of them are things like PCOS, things like lupus, things like just all these different autoimmune diseases that more research is coming out about why that happens and how that happens. And especially with women with their hormones, it's crazy.
It's true. And I would say that there's not enough people speaking up about it, where they speak up about the pretty, the fluff, the beautiful bling bikinis. But let's fast forward a few years. And yes, once I was so passionate about it. However, going through my own personal journey, my views have definitely changed significantly, where I can't even fathom that the things that I used to put in my body because I thought it was cool and I wanted to fit in with the others in or on my team. And now I'm like, I can't even believe I put my body under so much stress, so much pressure. And it was a way just really at the end of the day, just to fit in and to be accepted.
100%. And isn't that always what it is for women? Like we just want to feel loved. We want to feel pretty. And unfortunately, the society and the culture that we've created for that looks a certain way. And so, and I always say that having like an eating disorder or like a disordered relationship with food, it's one of the hardest disorders or like mental health problems to have, because if you have depression or anxiety, like those things can, in a sense, the outside factors can be controlled, and you can have like, you don't have to face it 24/7. Well, some people do, but most of the time you're not having to face it 24/7. It's kind of coming up. With an eating disorder, you have to eat hopefully 3 times a day minimum, you know, like we are faced with our disorder to survive. And it's like, I don't think people really realize that, like when you start down this path, like I wish there was like risk labels like they do on tobacco products now. Like I wish there were like labels on like Weight Watchers, like all those very normal things that people do, just because I didn't know what I was getting myself into. If I would have known that, like I could have messed up my hormones and maybe messed up my fertility in the future, heck no, I wouldn't have done it, you know?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we need more warning labels.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going through your own personal wedding prep, has anything from the past or your past journey sparked up?
That's such a good question. And I'm going to be honest. Yeah. Like I was actually thinking about this the other day, and I was like, I'm so thankful that I'm in the place that I am now, because even being in the place that I am now, I've obviously had thoughts of like, I want to look good. I want to look my best. Like you're supposed to have that bright glow. Like you want it to be the day you feel the most beautiful. And so naturally, yes, being a human being and being a woman, there are always going to be thoughts of like, do we need to eat a little bit more clean this month? Do we need to maybe just move our bodies a little bit more so that we feel good? But I'm always able to, I always say, don't listen to the first thought you have, listen to the follow-up thought, especially if you struggle with disordered relationship with food, your body, and exercise, because you'll have a thought. Your disorder or your little devil on your shoulder will say like, ooh, should you eat that? And then hopefully once you've started healing, your actual like present self will then be like, we don't do that anymore, you know? And so I try not to judge. I try not to place any judgment or worth on any of those like initial thoughts. If I notice there is not a follow-up kind of like check yourself thought that comes in, then I'll maybe try and sit with that and like either talk to my therapist about it, talk to my friends about it who've been through this. And I think that's something that I'm very blessed to have. I'm very blessed to have friends who have also been on this journey and been through it. And we're very open about all of this stuff. And so if I'm having a bad body image day, or if I'm like struggling with my body in whatever way, I'm able to talk about it now without the shame of like, oh, you're supposed to be healed. Like, you're not supposed to struggle with this anymore. That's not true. Like, I already know when I have a baby, hopefully in the future, that is going to be a battle. Like I know I'm going to struggle with my body image, but I'm aware of that. And I'm going to be able to hopefully implement tools to help me like get through that and combat that. And so going back to your question with the wedding planning, for an example, last year I went to a wedding. And the bride, it was a very well-known fact that the bride before her wedding literally only ate broccoli for like 3 weeks to be able to fit into her dress, because she ordered her dress a size smaller than she was at her last fitting, because she like wanted to look a certain way, whatever. But what was really interesting was everybody was, I don't want to say like making fun of her, but like laughing about that. But then in the next breath, she looks so great. Oh my God, she looks amazing. Like, look how great she looks. And so it's like, again, it's not her fault. Like the society that we have built of like, oh, women, like, don't do that. That's ridiculous. Don't put yourself in these crazy situations, but oh my gosh, you look great. And how is that
it's
okay?
like you're contradicting yourself and the situation.
Yeah. And I see it with my mom all the time. She's done so much work, and I'm always trying to help her like learn on her own self-love journey and like with others and stuff. But I see it with her and with my parents all the time. They'll like in one breath say like, yeah, love yourself. Like, yeah. But then in the next breath say something extremely fat phobic. And I'm like, I think it's just I think it's a generational thing too. Like, just the way like they grew up.
Yep. Same thing with our parents.
So my dad and I, we relate with going to the gym, and our parents actually met in the gym. So just exercise, I would say it's a big part of our family. But then there's days where I don't go to the gym, or I just walk, or I don't feel like doing anything. And my dad will ask me, so did you go to the gym today? I'm like, no. And then I'm like, okay, are you asking? I'm like, and then again, it plays with your head where it's like, wait, should I
supposed to
like no?
Do I look a certain way that you think
do I look
should?
a certain way? Yep. That's a big one.
I mean, I've struggled with that because this past year I've been on a whole healing journey, and I've pretty much had to stop my like working out, where now all I do is I go on my rebounder for 10 minutes a day because that's all my body can handle. And honestly, like I've fallen in love with it, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go on my rebounder. And it's like I've come such a long way, because a couple months ago I'm like, well, am I going to gain weight because I'm not working out, or what's going to happen to the way I look because I'm not lifting weights? It's like, but now I'm like, no, you know what? I'm on my healing journey, and what's important for my body is to go on my rebounder or just to do nothing today. So it's definitely been more of a mental battle than like a physical, honestly.
1,000%. And I remember too, when I was in the same stage that you were in, and I had to I literally didn't go to the gym for a long time. And my biggest piece of advice is, when you do start reintroducing that, do it completely different than how you used to do. Don't do the same routines. Don't do the same exercises. Like, try like doing so it almost felt like a totally different, just like ritual. Like I wasn't stepping back into it and being triggered. I also switched gyms. That was very helpful. Like finding a gym that was, so just like the environment felt different, and it didn't feel like I was having like, oh, well, I used to have a really good workout in here. It's like you were able to kind of create a different relationship with exercise. Also, those rebounders, can we just talk about them for a second? I'm obsessed. I got one. I actually have no idea how to like properly rebound. I just posted about this the other day. Like, I don't even know what rebounding like is supposed to look like. I just get on that thing and dance. And I love it so much. It's amazing. But I feel like if I would have shown myself a video of that back in the day, I would have been like, that girl's crazy. And I'm like, and I'm having so much fun.
Right. It's so much fun. And it's like, because like I'm also a somatic healer, so like just like shaking is so good for like your nervous system. So when I'm on that, I'll just like start like jumping and shaking, and I'm like, wait, I just feel so good. There's like there's a right way to not hurt yourself on a rebounder, but other than that, it's like just go on it, bounce, and have fun.
And just have fun. We need to bring the fun. That's why I love the term. I always use the term joyful movement. Like that's how I describe my relationship to movement now. It is joy centered. And with that being said, though, I also love a really freaking hard, gritty Peloton workout where I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's the soccer player in me. I much rather love doing like a sprint than like a long run, you know? But, and this is, I'm kind of almost talking to you more so now with where you're at in your journey. I really had to learn how to be able to have that in my life again, and it not trigger me to feel like I was doing something wrong. You know, like you're allowed to love that feeling. You're not allowed to abuse that feeling. Does that make sense? Because I remember there were so many days where I used to work at the gym in college, and I worked the 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. shift. And there was a time I literally have chills like thinking about this, because I'm just like, oh, I can't believe I did this. I would go home at midnight, And I would literally do like 12 sprints on the treadmill and then go upstairs and take a shower and go to bed. For what? I had already worked out that day. And it's just like, that is abusing that feeling. I didn't love that feeling. Like I thought I did. And I thought it was like, this is hard work. This is determination. Like this is motivation. No, that's just like this skewed sense of, I don't even know, like it just like feeding your ego and feeling like you're just like better than people or like doing it for something. That's not good. But you can have a relationship with movement where there is joy in it and it is fun. But if you're someone who does like crave that kind of intense like feeling, you can also do that and it can be healthy. Because there were so many times where in my healing journey, I also like I made mistakes. Like you're gonna maybe do a workout when you're like afterwards, you're like, oh, maybe that was maybe not centered in love. That was maybe like I ate a lot yesterday and I was feeling guilty and like, that's not good, but that's how you learn. I always tell people like, there's going to be exposure therapy through this journey. And the only way you can learn is making mistakes, but like self-checking yourself and like having those little check-ins and being like, maybe next time let's not do that, you know?
Absolutely. And when you do those self-check-ins, when you realize that maybe you did overdo it, that's where the growth happens. When you're able to make those realizations.
Yeah. That is where the healing happens. That is every single time for me. That is where the healing has happened. And it still happens. There are times now where I'm like, oh, I didn't get to work out for the past couple of days. I've been really busy and I really want to move my body. But then it's like, it's not centered in like, I know my body really wants to be moved, but my mind is in a setting of like, oh, well, I haven't moved in a few days. I need to. There should never be I need to work out. It should be, I want to work out.
Exactly. And I get to move my body.
To celebrate yourself, celebrate that you can move a way that makes you feel good. And maybe that movement is just going for a walk, just rebounding, or maybe it is doing that hard Peloton workout, like you said.
One of the things
about balance.
Yeah, it truly is. And one of the things my friend actually like taught me this, and it was really, really helpful through my healing journey when especially with movement, I would always ask myself, like, how do I want to show up in life? Do I want to, this is like on my post, like I've healed my relationship, whatever, but I'm trying to figure out this balance of like loving fitness, but trying to not love it too much, you know? And so I would always, because I still fall into that because I just genuinely do love it. So I have to like remind myself. So I'd ask myself, like, how do I want to show up in life when it comes to like movement? Do I want to be able to kayak? Do I want to be able to go on a spontaneous hike and not feel like I'm dying? Do I want to be able to pick up my kids and run up the stairs with them and my knees not feel like they're going to crack? You know, there are things that I want to be able, and that's kind of where I try to keep my mindset nowadays, because having abs and looking a certain way is not a prerequisite to that question. You know, like I can say all of those things, like I want to be able to do all these things, but the second part of that, it doesn't mean looking a certain way. It just means being able to move in certain ways.
Yeah, exactly. Without pain. And I don't know if have you ever done like mobility? That's something that I've actually fallen in love with over the last year, because it's funny that you mentioned that you want to be able to do certain things with your kids or feel good when you're doing them in the future. And I started implementing mobility, and let me tell you, these little movements make such a difference. And
can you explain that a little bit more? Like, what do you mean when you say like, because people always say mobility and I'm like, I need more of that, but like, what does that mean?
So mobility is really just bringing more awareness and more blood flow into the joints so that you're able to strengthen, but also lengthen your joints through smaller movements. And so you can also implement some stretching into a mobility routine as well. So it's different than strength training. But so over the last year, I've started incorporating more mobility into my workout routine, where I've scaled back heavy lifting and just bringing more attention into the joints to bring and to build up I guess, like my knees or my elbows, shoulders, and whatnot. So I can feel good when I am older and not feel like decrepit, or because a lot of times just coming from that bodybuilding background, I definitely have had so many injuries, especially back injuries, where when I'm in my 30s, 40s, I want to be able to pick up my kids and be able to hold them for long periods of time without my back hurting or without my knees hurting and whatnot. So it's like,
and it really helps. Like, I always think it's strengthening and lengthening, but also improving range of motion. That's how I think of like mobility. I mean, I've joined the class that Taylor goes to, and I love it. I mean, for me, it's like a full-on workout. Some days I come out of there like dripping, because it's hard. Like, you're really trying to improve that range of motion, but in the long run and like long term, it's so beneficial, especially as you age.
Yeah. And I'm like, how old are you guys, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 25,
and I'll be 28.
Okay, so yeah, I'm 28 also, and we're talking about getting older. And I'm like, I feel like I'm getting older now. Like, I did a bad back, like a true old school back day for the first time the other day, because my back has been hurting, and I was like, I actually do need to like strengthen my back muscles a little bit. I am so sore, so sore. And I said to my fiance, and he's 31, so he's a little bit older than me.
Yeah.
And he's like an old man now. And I'm like, you're only 31. Like, we need to work on our, but it's funny. Like, those are the conversations and like the things that you can have with movement. And I'm like, okay, we want to work on our mobility so that we can go play tennis for an hour and not feel like we're just completely wrecked for 3 days after it, because that's what's been happening. And as you do start aging, because it does happen, you don't think it's going to happen. And then you're like, oh my God, what the heck? And I'm only 28, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So you can have those goals and you can have those desires to like get better and to improve your body. But again, those things have absolutely nothing to do with what you look like. And they have absolutely nothing to do with like your body fat percentage,
Exactly.
So it goes back to the intention.
Yeah, so true. I love that. So what would you say are 3 of your favorite things or practices within your toolbox?
Oh, just 3.
I know. So as many
as you want. Your favorite ones.
You're good. It changes with the seasons, and I actually that is intentional because I lived in the Midwest and we have all 4 seasons, and I absolutely despise winter. And so something that has really helped me with learning to love that time period is having a different toolbox in the winter. It looks very different. I'll use my sauna blanket. I'll be intentional about going into the sauna when I'm at the gym. It's a lot slower. It's more stretching in the evenings because it's darker at night. So I've got like more time for my morning or for my nighttime routine. So it looks different. Right now, I'm like in my favorite season, which is rollerblading. I fell in love with rollerblading. I used to do it when I was a kid, like in my basement all the time. And then during COVID, my sister and I got some rollerblades, and I found a really long trail near where I live. And I was just like, I'm going to like rollerblade for distance. And it is so much fun. Like, I usually do around 10 miles and it takes me like an hour. And I always say, like, why would I go on a run when I can rollerblade? Like, I get the exact same workout, like from not that it matters, but from a calorie standpoint, like if I'm wearing my watch, my heart rate is the same as if I were to go running. And I just have so much more fun, and it's so much more joyful for me. So rollerblading is my number one. It'll always be my absolute favorite form of movement. The rebounder right now is I'm loving just in general, like in my basement, like I'll rebound, but then I'll also like hop off and just like dance, because I've been dancing to my reception playlist, literally like at least 3 times a week. So soon to be brides, like make a reception playlist. And then I've literally just been like envisioning and like imagining I'm at my wedding, and it makes it so much fun, and it just feels like a party, and it just gets me excited for the day. And then, what else? Honestly, I'll say my Peloton. Like my Peloton is a staple. I used to take like in-person group cycle bar classes, and I absolutely fell in love with just like moving to music is something that I love. I do with the rebounder, and with like on the bike. I just love music, and I love moving my body to music and to a certain beat. It makes it feel more fun for me, and it always just feels way more joyful. But with the Peloton, I love that you can do like, I honestly, I've never done a workout longer than 30 minutes on my Peloton, and I've had it for 3 years. So it's a quicker workout. It's something where if I had a really long day and I don't want to leave and go to the gym, I can just go in the basement, do my 20 to 30 minute workout, and I feel like really, really accomplished after. And it's just so fun. It's just like I just feel like, yeah, it's just a good time.
Yeah. We love our Peloton.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's helped me so much throughout my knee healing journey where again, I was so against cardio, and through my knee healing journey, I was forced to get outside more, go on longer walks, get more movement and blood flow into my knees. And I'm like, you know what? I can't go on the treadmill, but I can cycle. I'm like, let me try this. Ended up falling in love with just biking at the gym, and then ended up getting a Peloton, and I'm obsessed. Absolutely obsessed.
They do such a great job. And another one too, and I can't believe I'm even saying this, but I have recently fallen in love with running, just like regular outside running.
Yeah.
Growing up playing soccer, I absolutely hated it unless I was chasing something. Like I needed a goal, like I needed an end point. I was much more of like, I enjoyed doing sprints if I were to do anything. And so I had a really bad relationship with running just in general, like especially then going into college. If I were to go on a run, it was always like last resort if I felt terrible about myself, and like I would punish myself and go on a run. So I naturally, if that's the relationship, that the foundation that I'm creating with running, it just always felt so hard. And it just did not, I was like, how do people enjoy this? And so it was very intentional last year. I was like, you know what? I want to try and heal my relationship with running, because I love that it's something you can do with zero equipment. So like if I'm traveling or if whatever you're doing, like you can always go on a run for the most part.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I was like, you know what? I've kind of felt a little complacent in my movement journey. I was like, let's just like challenge ourselves. And I got a couple really good pieces of advice from girls on Instagram, and their number one piece of advice was go so much slower than you think that you should. And I did. And I literally fell in love with it, because I realized like, oh, I've been running and I've been sprinting and then feeling feeling like out of breath and like, how do people do this? And so I started off so slow, like literally almost feeling silly with how slow I was running, but I could go for so long. And then that made me feel really good. I was like, oh my gosh, I ran for 30 minutes without stopping. I maybe only went 2 miles, but it's okay, you know?
Yeah, did it.
And so
exactly.
Once I like had done a few runs, I think it took like 6 or 7 runs for me to like actually like really feel like, wow, I'm enjoying this. But then again, that being said, I have to check myself, because I tend to try something and then I become obsessed with it. And so I just have to like self-check and be like, okay, we don't need to sign up for a 10K. We don't need to sign up for anything. Like let's keep this where it is. It's a great tool to have and to pull out of my toolbox, but it's not something. And maybe for other people, they'll like fall in love with it and it becomes their thing. I just know myself and I know my tendencies. And I think that's something that's important for people to do, is just to be able to like check yourself and to know, like, again, intention. Why would I be doing that? Why would I want to push myself more? And so I just have to be careful with it. But it is a really great tool that I now have in my toolbox that I have been enjoying recently.
That's awesome.
I love that.
That's growth too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is growth.
Yes.
Yeah. So one last question. What are some tips that you can give our audience if they're dealing with if they're falling into diet culture, and what would you tell them?
So first off, being able to identify it, I think, is a really big thing. Like being able to know what is and what isn't diet culture. Being able to scroll through your social media feed and just like call it out, you know, like, and be able to just being able to see it is the first step. And then for me, one of the biggest things that helped me was unfollowing people. So like my whole feed was diet culture because I was in the fitness industry and everybody was bodybuilding and doing bikini competitions and sharing what I eat in a day, and that just was not serving me. It was not helping me. And I was living in this world where I thought everybody was doing that and that was the only way to live. And then you step out of it and you're like, oh, I don't have to live like that. Like that's not the only thing that's important in life. So I completely re-diversified my feed. And that is a very underrated tip that I don't think people realize how important it is, because we create these whole worlds on social media. Like whatever you have in your bubble when you open up your phone and whatever you're scrolling through, that is a world that you live in. And so whatever you decide to put in that world is what is going to be subconsciously playing through your brain. So making sure that you're following accounts that are bodies that don't look like yours, bodies that are bigger, bodies that are smaller, bodies that are bigger and are healthy as hell and stronger than you. So you can like just realize like, oh, like bodies are diverse and they're beautiful and they're great at every size. That was huge for me. And seeing other women that looked like me and had cellulite and had these things that I thought were so terrible and they were loving it. Like that was monumental for me and really helped me feel confident to be able to then share it on my end too. So yeah, being able to call it out, being able to like diversify your feed. And then honestly, if it is to a point where it is taking over your life and you feel like your mental space is always consumed with thoughts about your body and food and exercise, getting help, like getting professional help is so important. Seeing a therapist if you're going to see a dietitian, make sure it's a intuitive eating dietitian or a food freedom dietitian. But yeah, just surrounding yourself with people who make you feel good, and don't also do that, because if you're surrounding yourself with people who are constantly putting themselves down and focusing on that kind of stuff, you naturally will focus on that too. So yeah.
I love that. And that's perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today on today's episode. It was such a pleasure having you and chatting a little bit more about diet culture, your journey, and we're so grateful for you. And thank you for being so open and vulnerable as well.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys. It's been so great. And I hope everybody can take a little slice of the pie and apply it to their life. And also just realize that like life's not that serious, like it's really not that serious. Life is so short. Like go eat the delicious food when you're traveling, go have fun. And it makes life so much more enjoyable. So thank you guys so much. And it was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Soul Over It. We are your hosts, Taylor and Abby Scarpello.
Join us weekly every Thursday for a dose of inspiration, empowerment, biohacking tips, and some exercise for the soul right here on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you're listening in on Apple, don't forget to leave us a review.